Let me make sure everybody is in. Wonderful. Okay. Welcome, attendees. Can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. Please let me know if you're not able to hear me in any way, shape, or form. Just send me a text or send me in the chat box. Great, wonderful. Well, everybody's filtering in. Thank you all so very much for joining us today. I'm very excited that we have some phenomenal panelists. I am going to let them introduce themselves, and then we'll start in with our questions. I encourage all the students to start thinking about questions. While we have some here, please go ahead and put them in the chat box. I will be more than happy to be monitoring those or put them in the Q&A box, and we definitely will do what we can to make sure your question gets answered. So without further ado, let's go ahead and Jeremy, do you want to start off with introducing yourself, sir?
Sure, I'll go first. So Jeremy Bailey, I'm actually a graduate of UNC Charlotte, mechanical engineering. So I have worked for two global companies in the past, Ingersoll Rand, which is US based, but has global factories in 6 different countries. And then I currently work for Doosan Bobcat, which is headquarters in Seoul, South Korea. So a lot of experience with the international stuff. I currently lead their aftermarket parts business. I've had previous roles in engineering service, manufacturing engineering, and then just last year led the product management team. So that was a global responsibility with individuals in 6 different countries. So glad to meet you guys and looking forward to spending some time with you guys.
Thank you so much. Dan, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Welcome, everyone. Nice to meet you virtually. My name's Dan Armour. I'm a senior engineering manager at the brand new Toyota battery factory in Liberty, North Carolina, near Greensboro. Been working at Toyota for 18 to 20 years. We're headquartered in Toyota City, Japan. I'm originally from Canada, where we have a huge vehicle assembly plant, and I've been down here helping to get this factory up and running. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and just interested to chat with you all today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Emil?
Yeah, hi there. Emil Naslund is my name. I'm a mechanical engineer and a grad student, or I graduated grad school in industrial engineering. So I'm a little bit of both there. I've played in both manufacturing and product development fields throughout my career. Started out as a quality engineer for a company called Meritor. It's in the axles and drivetrains and the business end of heavy trucks, basically. And after that, I spent a little over a decade in the Honda supply chain up in Ohio. And now I work for a company called GKN Automotive. And that's also drive lines, drive axles, propulsion technology, torque management, and things like that. So that's what I do now as an engineering manager, manufacturing engineering manager here in Newton. So looking forward to this discussion. It should be fun.
Emil, just to clarify, where did you get your degrees, sir?
I got my degree, my first degree from a university in Sweden. Was my mechanical engineering, and my graduate school was at UCF in Orlando.
Wonderful. And Dan, were your degrees in Canada?
Yes, yeah, I went to engineering university near our Toyota factory in Canada.
Okay, wonderful. Hiroko, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Hiroko Childers. I'm originally from Japan. I have worked in 3 different companies in US, all of them are Japanese affiliate company. One is US Connect, that's in Hickory, North Carolina, fiber optic company for about 3 years. And I took a great time to spend with my kids. And then came back to start working at the Sierra North America, which is in Morganton. About 8 years. And after that, I had opportunity that Toyota is coming to North Carolina. I couldn't skip it. So I jumped out from my beloved area of the Western Carolina and moved to Greensboro area. So I'm currently working at Fujihatsu Toyotsu Battery Components. We go by FTBC. I've been kind of working, helping dispatch members from Japan so that they can establish their life here in the United States. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all so very much. So here's going to be my, I guess the big question for everybody is, what in your own experience has been the main difference working for an internationally owned company? And I understand if you haven't worked for a based company, but maybe some of you have. What would you say would be your most glaring aha or wow, didn't expect that? Anyone can jump in.
I'll give it a shot. So I think it depends on where the company origin is. So I have the Honda supply chain naturally is when the Japanese, especially the Honda, established itself in the US, they formed a lot of partnerships with their supply base and brought their supply base over from Japan. So there's a lot of Japanese influence into the supply chain as well. Whereas I think a lot of other companies source locally with their, like, for example, we have BMW in South Carolina, and I speak from auto industry, right? So they have, we supply a lot to them, and we're actually a British company. So there's a little bit of difference depending on what the origin is.
Have you found that, just to follow up on that, that the Japanese companies just feel more secure working with folks that maybe are from their same company when it has to do with like quality of products, or is that just customary? I'm just curious.
I'm thinking that they're more careful taking risks. So obviously sourcing with a new supplier is always a risk.
Gotcha.
And so I think that it's a way to managing that.
Nice. Okay. Risk management. Dan, Hiroko, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I agree with everything that was just said, but also I think in Japanese culture and business culture, there's a lot of long-term relationships that are fostered and really valued. My experience at Toyota and with our supply base is there's a real strong desire to develop those long-term relationships and work together, even when there's problems, to fix things together instead of resourcing a part of a vehicle or something like that, or moving on to new employees or new relationships. So I think that's part of just the culture of the country as well.
That's very true. I agree with you, Dan, that it has to do with the partnerships that they form. Sometimes those partnerships can be too deep, and you can get into antitrust issues with those partnerships. But yeah, that is a very good note.
Hiroko?
I think piggyback on that also, but so when especially for the manufacturing companies, they focus so much on the qualities. So especially when I worked with the automobile industries, the customer is very important. We have to do, especially with Toyota, is very strict on standard or the safety wise. So we follow that very specifically so that we don't we will not cause any stoppage of the production. So we are very, as a supplier, we have really loyalty, and we are very focused on making a really good product. And also interesting in the Japanese parent company, the relationship with their supplier are very close. Like Emil said, the long relationship, so they can depend on each other. Versus probably we, as FTBC, we're a new company, we're trying to build a relationship with supplier here in the US. It is taking time because we don't know anybody. So we have some struggles, and of course, customers different. We more resources out, outsource out, versus we kind of depend on each other for a long time. Like in Japan, we are learning, how quickly we can make the movement relationship versus what to do. Because we have depend on so much in Japan between supplier and Honda. So very interesting. Of course, culture-wise, it's different, but it's a good challenge for us right now.
Wonderful. Jeremy, do you have any thoughts about your Korean-owned company? Is that correct, sir?
That's correct. Yeah. So we're based in South Korea. So I would echo the same ideas as working for an Asian-based company. Everything is a lot longer term. We have very deep supply chains, but coming previously from an American-owned company to a Korean-owned company, I was very surprised when they said, okay, what's your 25-year roadmap on product development? So they think very long term. In the USA, we're used to 3-year, 5-year, maybe a 10-year, which is a stretch. We don't know what next year is going to bring, much less in 10 years. But I was kind of floored when they asked, okay, for a 25-year, and they were able to actually make that. So it's very long-term thinking. In the USA, you have a lot of leaders that just want to make this year's bonus or next year's bonus and very short term. But it's very long range planning for the Korean company. So that was probably one of the biggest shocks as far as strategy goes.
Interesting. So I'm just curious, when your companies hire new students, is there any type of onboarding that goes on that helps them get an understanding of the culture, whether it's at the parent company in the home country or if it's even here locally?
So I know one of the practices we use. It's an older book, but I think they just released a second edition not too long ago. Is a book called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. So it's about cultural etiquette in different countries. That was a required reading for Ingersoll Rand and Doosan Bobcat as well. A lot of that information now you can find online. There's YouTube videos, there's Instagram videos, there's different items that say, if you're traveling to India, for example, here are the basic customs so an American does not get in trouble. So I would say look into that. We do those. That's kind of a mandatory requirement for a new traveler. And we usually send a buddy. So someone who's been there before will travel and kind of show you the ropes.
That's great. Dan, Emil, Hiroko, any thoughts on that, or what maybe your companies do, or maybe something that you went through that you found helpful when you did travel abroad?
When we hire new engineers, we go through an onboarding process and teach them about, Toyota production system and the Toyota way and things like that. And we touch a little bit on Japanese culture, but we really learn sort of on the job and with our Japanese coworkers and mentors while we're in North America. I've had the chance to live in Japan 2 times over the last 15 years. And when we're sending someone on a long dispatch assignment like that, we provide cultural training and some more in-depth experience. And then maybe, as Jeremy said, we don't like to send someone overseas for the first time alone. It's usually as part of a team or with a buddy or mentor to sort of learn the ropes and that sort of thing, and keep out of trouble and learn the cultural norms, both from a business perspective and outside of work as well.
Thank you. Emil, any thoughts on that and your experiences,
Yeah,
sir?
yeah. So I was manager of business development for a Japanese supplier, and that was a very, that when they have a U.S. subsidiary, typically they have some American management, or typically the suppliers I've been in touch with or companies have been like this a dual management structure. So you have a Japanese management structure and then a parallel American management structure. And to work with both, it requires you to have some sort of curiosity, I guess, for the cultural differences. And there was some training that actually Honda provided to us that's very interesting about the background and how, explaining how keep going back to the Japanese suppliers because that's what we're all talking about here. But they have a history of back in between 1600s and 1800s. It was very, very, very closed society, and how that has shaped the thinking and the mindsets of a lot of still happening today. Some of those differences, and having a bit of an open mind and curiosity on those types of things will really help understand why people think and react in the way they do, where sometimes it feels a little bit hard to understand.
No, absolutely. Hiroko, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, in terms of onboarding for the new members, we're a new company. We've been only established a year and a half. So in the beginning, we depend on the resources from TAI, Toyota Tsusho America, because they have a variety of resources. So some of the members can take cultural training. And also we actually have a very fortunate opportunity that Anika Sensei, she has consulted with us a couple of times. So we created a video. So onboarding members from US, local members can watch, and then just a touch base of the Japanese culture. So they can learn just gist of it, because it's we like somebody said, we have to kind of encounter each moment, each incident, and then we have to overcome the differences. But just having an introduction will help them. Oh, what is the difference? So that was helpful. And that also for Japanese members, we had a cultural training also to introduce what to do, what to not to do, etiquette wise. So we try to start getting some more information, provided to both groups. So we want to establish the more concrete programs. So I'm hoping we can get better understanding to each groups there. But in the end, they just need to communicate each other. I'm translator sometimes, and I tell everybody, my goal is I don't have to be here, so you guys can communicate each other. So that kind of atmosphere I want to create. You can say hi to each other. How are you doing? How was the weekend? Just having a good communication is a key to have a good relationship between the members. So that kind of atmosphere we are trying to create in the office also.
No, that's wonderful. I think you all have hit it. We're all humans. We're all either engineers or business people, but working for the same company. And to leave, I guess, our stereotypes behind, if we can, be open-minded and just seek to understand one another. So I'm curious, and again, you all may not know this, or some of you might. How does a student, maybe a new graduate or someone who's been in the company for a couple of years, post or apply for a position in another country? Is it possible? Is it easier? Is there criteria? I'm just kind of curious. I know, Dan, you said you went over there for a little bit. I know, Jeremy, you've been visiting. Help us understand if a student is interested and they got their passport and they've done the cultural training. What are their chances of going?
In my company, I think the chances are high, basically. We're constantly working on new projects, whether it's batteries here or vehicles or engines at our other facilities, and a lot of the design is still centered at our head office in Japan. So we usually end up sending large numbers of engineers and even production workers for training and trials and things like that, for short terms, for a few weeks, that type of timeline. I think I've been to Japan 74 times or something since 2006. And a lot of my coworkers are in the same boat. So, and then about my 2 times living in Japan, both were for a new project. So I was expressed my interest and then was lucky enough to be chosen to move there and sort of represent my home company on those projects in Japan.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jeremy or Emil?
I think what you said, Dan, is right. If you get started with international projects, new product development teams or a new vendors is going to come in from a different country, getting involved early, showing interest. And I would say the harder you work and the better you establish yourself in the company, the more opportunities will be given to you. So we actually just finished last week early talent review. So all the managers talk about their employees. There's a section in most HR systems that says, are you mobile? Are you globally mobile? So you check that box, right? Have that conversation with your manager. Hey, I'm interested in working in our Prague, Czech Republic example. We've got 4 expats there right now. And they worked on project teams. They showed interest. They did 2 or 3 trips to Czech and then said, yeah, I'll go live there for 3 years. So be sure to work hard and show the interest would probably be a great stepping stone to get in.
Yeah, I like that, Jeremy, and not just work hard. I think all of our companies probably have a strong requirement for some technical expertise. So I think it's about learning your product, learning the work you're doing, and showing that you can be a valuable member of the team.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. And that is really once you're in, right? As a student, also, I would say that target those international companies in your search for internships, because I think that's a great way to get into it. So if you have had an internship with a company, the chances of you getting hired on, if you've done a good job, that's a pretty good chance. So at least I know that we're looking for, when we're looking for people, someone with work experience when they graduate is really got a big advantage.
No, thank you. Hiroko, please, do you have anything to add to that? Any advice to give to the students or new graduates that might be seeking to go? And I understand we're talking a little more about the Asian countries, but obviously this would be applicable to any country in the world, I suppose.
Since we are new companies, we are still kind of building our equipment and all, so not so much of the opportunity to go to the Japan. However, and I agree with Emil. So this is great. U.S. culture is wonderful. You have internship opportunities. You search for the international companies, and study where there are branches in other countries, how they do in a business over there. So try to work in us over the summer and do your best and get hire the companies, because I think in the US you see the expertise, what is good, you are good at it, and of course you raise your hands when you have a project like many international companies, but you just have to get your step into the door. That's internship is a huge opportunities for them. And then of course you talk to people, you show the interest, what you can do, how you can contribute to the project, over there. That kind of communication is also the big step, but the internship will be a great chance for you to get in there.
Oh, that absolutely. I think that's great. So trying to gain experience where and when you can, but also putting yourself out there and making it known, right? You have so many, your companies are so big, and if you're hiding in a cubicle all day and never express an interest, you're not going to get tapped for any opportunities, let alone internationally. So I'm curious, do any of you all speak another language? Is that even required?
No, I don't. Just English. Luckily, English is a very prominent business language, so it hasn't been an issue for me so far.
Wonderful.
Yeah, myself as well. I've tried to learn Japanese a couple of times in my life, but it's a struggle for me. But before both times I moved there, I learned some basic Japanese and achieved like the lowest level on the global Japanese test, which is like a level 5, the JLPT test. But it's not enough to do business. I've been lucky to work in some groups with a lot of English speaking staff in Japan. And then on my most recent assignment, I was in a bit more of a remote area as we started working on battery development, and we had a team of translators to help us out, luckily. But it's tough learning new languages for me anyways.
Emil?
Well, they tried to make me learn Japanese, but that would be my 4th language, so I would have a tough time with that. So I kind of pushed back.
3 was your limit. So which 3 languages?
Learn English. Sorry, I was kind of blunt on that one.
No, that's okay. What 3 languages do you speak, sir?
Swedish, German, and English.
Very good. Very good. And Hiroko, what is your advice to those students or any student who wishes to go abroad? What about the foreign language?
In terms, if you are interested in Asian countries, definitely Chinese is big. If you're able to speak Chinese and work in the Asian countries or Asian region, that would be already a plus. When I found out, of course, in the US, probably Spanish is the best. So what is needed in the area to study that would be great. And then I have some of my friends' children. They actually study some Chinese and try to go, to actually study abroad or even for the summer or travel. So expose yourself in the area and try to use it. Like other three panelists said, if you're living in the country trying to speak it, you have to immerse yourself and then you can learn it. So learn and try to use it in the actual setting. That would be my advice.
No,
It took
that's
me 20
great.
years for me to speak
Yeah.
English. Take your time.
No, you've done very good. Absolutely. And luckily, I think I think there's a lot of online places, it sounds like, or tools that if one is going to travel, maybe like you said, Dan, there would be some basic words you can learn or phrases that might make sense, like how do you order something at a restaurant, or perhaps maybe even, where the hotel is that you need to go to. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think learning some simple things to get around town, take a taxi, order food at restaurants is really helpful. And luckily, we have a lot of technology now with real-time translators and things like that. The first time I went to Japan, smartphones didn't exist, and you were sort of on our own. Google Maps didn't exist, so it was a little more
Right.
back then. So.
Sure. No, absolutely. I agree 100%. So yeah, we encourage students definitely not to be afraid. You don't have to be, completely, bilingual in order to travel, right? That's the nice thing about this global engineering, that it's English is spoken, but you got to make some efforts, I think, to understand where people are coming from and do your best to try to acclimate to their culture, just like they do when they come here, right? So I'm kind of curious. What would you say, gosh, are some of the challenges working for an international company? What are some of the things that you think our students maybe should be aware of? And it could just be the way things are going right now. Maybe it's tariffs, maybe it's visa issues. I'm not sure. It could be anything. But in your experiences, what are some of the challenges if they do want to work for here in the US or even maybe going abroad?
I think one of the biggest shocks when I first started working on international teams was how big the globe is and all the time zones. So you've got people 12 hours ahead of you, you've got people 6 hours ahead of you. We've done a project including all three factories around the globe. So you've got Korea, you've got India, and you've got the US. So trying to find a meeting time that is convenient for everyone is extremely hard. So you may have a meeting one week that's at 8 p.m. and then the next week we try to alternate to be nice to everyone. So the next meeting will be at 8 a.m. So you kind of share the burden. You're either up at night or up extremely early in the morning. So I think noticing the time zones, we're aware of them in the US. You got the West Coast 3 hours behind, but when you start dealing with an entire day and 12 hours and 6 hours, it turns out to be kind of a burden, and it takes some getting used to.
Good point. Absolutely, sir. Dan, Emil, Hiroko, anything jump out that you want to share or things they just need to be aware of? I think the time zones is absolutely true, sir.
No, we touched on the cultural differences, right? That they're gonna hit you.
Yeah.
They're gonna hit you at some point. So you got to be prepared for that. You got to notice something. That and it doesn't have to be Japanese. I mean, right now I work for a British company, and British in the U.S. There's still differences, very minute, but there's still differences. And the German influences that we have as well. So it's you got to be a little bit. Sometimes people say something, and if English is your second language, you could come across in a way that you don't mean, and it can rub people the wrong way. And that's be a little bit. If English is the business language that in which you're working, have a little bit of patience with those who don't speak English as a native language. And don't assume that they're meaning to offend you, even though they sound like they're, really, really cutting you down.
Nope.
I think, on top of that, Emil, make sure they're not just nodding, yes, I heard what you said. They're really understanding what you said. I mean,
Yes.
the difference is we have communication issues all the time, even if you're looking at video instead of just a phone call. The person nodded, yes, he understood me. No, he didn't really understand what you meant. Yeah.
Good tip. So over
And simple
communicate.
things like,
Yeah.
simple things like if an American manager will say, yeah, that might be difficult. That could be a challenge for you to actually take it on and do it anyway. I think if a Japanese manager says, that is difficult, that might mean no, don't do it. So there's a little bit of, that fine detail in how you say things and what you mean. Those are things that you actually have to just learn on the job, I think, a lot of times.
I have to chime in for the nodding and then just or saying in Japanese hi means yes, yes. And then one time we had a meeting. There's one U.S. management, local management, other Japanese management members. They said hi, hi, hi. So U.S. management said, okay, this project is okay, we can take off. And then the person did it. Later they come and say, did I say okay? They're like, yes, you nodded there. So you have to have a clear communication, not just depend on the verbal communication. So what we learn is actually it's good to have, or having a meeting with Japanese management or anybody meeting, to have agenda written out. We're going to discuss this. We're going to discuss that at the very end of the meeting. This is a conclusion. Everybody okay? Are we here? Then we just having a really clear communication. Just don't depend on the just verbal communication. That's very challenging and interesting experience. And I'm kind of surprised to hear the other location you guys face the same situation. So it's not just us. It's almost like a universal thing. I think so. The clear communication, and also Japanese people tend to have a different process for the agreement or approach to the meeting. Well, some people already made a kind of consensus in the beginning. Anika Sensei told us how to explain that to local member. Nemawashi is a Japanese culture, and in the end, they only have conclusion. Versus in the US, you have on one meeting, you get to the conclusion, take off. So it's a different approach to the decision making also. So that's of course, different culture, different way of thinking. So learn how quick, as much as you communicate and learn, say what is the communication or decision-making style in this particular company. That might be a surprising, or it's good to know so that you can, it won't be too surprising for you when you start working.
And another point I just want to raise is how to communicate with people whose first language is in English. They get very lost very quickly when you have a meeting and there's back and forth discussion, point, counterpoint, no this, but that, completely. You can see their eyes go blank, right? So therefore, a lot of times what I learned to do was PowerPoint is your friend. So you put the points and don't use a very wordy PowerPoint either. Use illustrations and facts. Simple, a lot of data. It could be a very busy slide. That's fine, but that and at the bottom we always put a conclusion, like what is the point of the slide? Just the summary box at the bottom. Then they can read and you get the point across much better.
Great
Yeah, I
tip.
like that
Dan,
about-
please. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that about simple communication and reducing the number of words. It's actually a little funny. I've spent so much time in Japan and working with Japanese colleagues that I've become pretty proficient at speaking simply to them. And now I have a lot of Japanese colleagues here in North Carolina and a lot of new engineers and staff on our team from America. And they often explain something and they're very wordy and going on and on and on like this. And then the Japanese member asks me to explain what they said. And I repeat what they said, but more simply. So I've started saying that I'm very good at translating from English to English so that our Japanese staff can understand more simply. And then maybe something that other people didn't mention, in my overseas travels, I've traveled to other countries a lot, especially Japan. There's a difference between visiting Japan on a business trip as opposed to working there as an employee. So I think when you work in another country, there's sort of higher expectations that you sort of adopt to their culture and their behavior and their work style. So it's I know a lot of people that have visited Japan just for short trips and think like, oh, this is really amazing or really easy or whatever, really enjoyed it. But then when you go and live there, you have to sort of immerse yourself in a different way, but both inside and outside of work. So it's just something to remember.
Oh, great suggestion. So we had a few questions. Students, please go ahead and start putting them in the chat box or the Q&A box. Do you all have any advice for standing out as an applicant if you are applying to work for a company in another country? Are there things, I know we talked about internships, or maybe you have a little bit of a foreign language or took a couple of classes or something, but is there anything that you all maybe would recommend or you'd be looking for if you were in a position hiring somebody, knowing that maybe in the future they could be somebody in another country for your country, your company?
I think probably study abroad programs. I dated a girl my senior year in college that did study abroad. She ended up doing a whole year in Australia. So she had that on her resume. She worked on the university there when she was going. So she knew whenever she graduated, she wanted to go work in Australia. So she already had some inroads and already had some contacts and then built a network there. So there's a bunch of programs available. I didn't even know it was really available with the Department of International Studies. So I would say check into that right now in university. You can get started now. But she used that to ended up living about 4 years in Australia. So that's definitely a way to get started. I've seen work successfully in the past.
Awesome, thank you. Kind of going off topic, the student says, but that's okay. How important have you all found it to keep in touch with the current politics, whether it's US or in the country that you're working with, and how may it affect those decisions regarding your projects or how you guys do business? It's got to be on the minds of somebody in your companies.
I answered the last one. I'll let someone else talk.
Yeah,
That's a hot potato.
I can speak to that. Toyota in general tries to take a very balanced approach to things, regardless of the administration or trends. We try to have a balanced portfolio of product for customers to buy, but it does affect us. With the tariff discussion right now, with steel and aluminum from other countries, we have parts and components of batteries and vehicles and engines crossing borders several times before it ends up in a completed product. So we're aware of all that, and I'm actually from Canada, so there's a lot of tariff news with Canada right now. But we try to take a balanced approach, work with whoever's in power in each country. But then we also need to be aware of how other people see us sometimes when we visit foreign countries. Sometimes Japan is a very conservative country, so if there's something exciting going on in North America from a political perspective or otherwise, you have to sort of understand that people in other countries might have different feelings about what's going on back home and things like that.
Very good. Emil, did you want to touch the hot potato a little bit?
Just be aware. I think having an awareness is good. Be prepared for questions. But yeah, I wouldn't. I would try not to bring it up on my own. But I would expect questions.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with it. Don't bring it up. Usually that's what we stay away from: religion, politics. My personal feeling is if you're going to work on a project team and you're going to travel to a country a lot, you want to build relationships with the folks there. And outside of work, you want to have a good enough relationship with those people that they feel okay asking you, right? That on, not in a work setting, but out having dinner, they'll ask, how do you feel about XYZ subject, and then give you their take on it. Whenever you build that kind of bond with people internationally, that's how you really move projects ahead and really get things done. You're talking on WhatsApp, you're talking on Kakao is what Korea uses. So I would say for any international relationship, you want to get into a phase where you can talk about those subjects that are touchy for some, but don't do that right away, right? Develop that relationship where you can, would probably be my advice.
Very good. And I would imagine that your companies have policies and preparing you when you do go overseas, or you are going to be working with folks from other countries, anywhere in the world, that there's probably, hopefully, some kind of list of do's or don'ts, or at least, like you said, kind of some prepping that goes into it, because again, it can be sensitive for some people. Great. So let's go on. And I think, this generation, and I guess all generations, but I think this generation in general really likes work-life balance. Nothing wrong with that. I love it too. But how is that viewed? Like, the working from home, or the hybrid, or the flexible hours, or, just going to the gym in the middle of the day. Not that that's bad, but I'm just curious. Do other countries embrace that? Do they even have better programs than us? Do they actually offer more to their employees? What's your all's experiences on that?
If that's important to you, I think U.S. works more hours. American workers work more hours per year than most other countries do, except for Japanese. I think they work even more. I've noticed, when I was over there, they would work from the morning till 8, 9 o'clock at night every day in and day out. And when I had transplants coming over, to come to US, they brought those habits with them. So that is a challenge for sure. I think in Europe they have a different outlook. They have more vacation and work fewer hours than we do in the US.
So, Emil, following up with that, if you're an American working over in Japan, or let's say Korea or somewhere else, is it the expectations you will follow suit to what they're doing? Or are you looked down upon if you leave at 5 o'clock? Could you say, hey, I'm not going to work 12 hours a day?
That's how I expected, how I experienced it.
That they
Yeah,
expected you to work that
Yep.
long?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with Emil. I spent a lot of time in the Asian countries as well as Europe, and there's a reason. So at 8:30 in the Dusan Tower in Seoul, the lights flash at 8:30 p.m. And what's going on? That's your signal. You've got 30 minutes. So they actually had to put that in place because people were staying until 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And you have to follow suit, and you do not leave before your boss leaves. If your manager's still there, even if you're scrolling the internet, you have to look busy, and you can't leave. Versus in Italy, I spent some time. They picked me up from a hotel about 9 a.m. And we got there. I started working. They looked at me like I was doing something wrong. They're like, whoa, 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 we get coffee first. So for 45 minutes, because we had a guest, we had coffee and we relaxed. The next day was a holiday, so we took time off. So you'll get jealous of all the European holidays, kind of the 35-hour work weeks. But in Korea, it's probably a 60-hour work week, and you never leave before the boss leaves, and you're there till about 8:30 every night.
Dan, did you want to share anything with you about your experiences, you working there?
Yeah, no, I think what they said sums it up pretty well. In Japan, definitely there's an expectation to work a lot of hours. If you don't, as a foreigner, no one will say anything to you, but they'll just expect less of you. So if you really want to fit in and really want to be part of the team, you have to immerse yourself in their culture, including the expectations at work. But Japan has gotten Korea was mentioned about implementing go home time. Japan's gotten better as well. work-life balance, I think historically in the 80s and 90s and 2000s was really, really bad. But it has gotten better. Most companies try to have a no overtime day on a Wednesday or a Thursday or something like that. And there's usually some rules in place from the company's unions about total number of overtime hours per month and things like that. Although people find ways to get around it to work more to get their job done. But yeah, there's a lot of work, and the work-life balance isn't quite as good as it is here. But in Japan, you also get, there's like 3 national holidays, like week-long holidays per year, basically, where everything shuts down. So you find your time to rest and spend time with family and travel and all of those things.
Sure.
I can add one thing. So I live in Japan between since I came here, I went back 3 years, and I work actually at the university. So university is I work there, which is really life work balance, really very heavy. So the university had an English department. So all the teachers, they're coming from Canada, Australia, United States. They seem to be able to work, at their pace. Of course, it's the different entities. So if you're working at a major Japanese company, kind of typical company, you may have to stay late, like everybody said. But it depends where you work. There are some other companies like, more life work balance focused companies. They actually let the people go home earlier, or make sure that they can take the days off early. And then, and the different from perspectives, where I work, the companies, they in here, United States, they know that Japanese people tend to work so late, and they do. A lot of people from local members will go home 5 o'clock. Family is important, but we also explain that to Japanese dispatch member. Do not get upset they leave at 5 o'clock because their family is important. They have a different life culture. So even when you work in here, Japanese companies, sometimes they make sure they understand the difference. So you don't have to necessarily stay 7 o'clock in the 9 o'clock in the evening. So we are trying to be more aware. Life work balance is more important, so that we have to be able to accommodate the needs of the employees these days.
That's wonderful to hear. There was a couple questions in the box here. Dan, I guess one of the students might have been, and this I guess for anyone, but Dan, I think in particular, what made you decide to want to go live there? I guess, or actually, maybe let's start with, why'd you come from Canada? And then how'd you end up in Japan?
Okay, I went to Japan first, but I started working at Toyota as a student, like an internship during university, and really liked the style of work, how they tried to fix problems properly. It appealed to me as an engineer, and I liked the product and what the company stood for. And then not too long after I started working permanently at Toyota, after a couple of years, there was an opportunity to go overseas for one of my assignments. And I just felt like I'd been at the company a couple of years and I still didn't really understand the culture. And I wanted to be seen as a leader, both technically and just in terms of understanding the company from a global perspective. So I put my name in the hat and begged my boss actually at one point and got selected. So, and I can't really verbalize exactly why I thought it was important. I just felt like it was something that I needed to do to understand the company better. And I knew I wanted to spend a lot of years here. And so I thought it was important for me in my development.
That's great. Jeremy, you going to Korea and some other countries, what kind of motivated you to kind of get involved with the international projects or teams?
I grew up wanting to travel. We spent a lot of summers with my grandparents, and my grandfather always got the National Geographic magazines. You know, it was in print, so I would look at those places and say, I want to go here someday. I want to go here someday. thinking more of like a vacation, or if I, after our retirement, I'll go travel. I didn't really think much about it as, being able to work and get paid to go see, all these different countries. But as I got in college more and understood more of the international and talked to international students, from different places than where I was from, I saw it as a possibility. And then I just happened to get assigned to a new product development project that involved Europe and India, and liked working with the people, liked traveling there, liked my first trip, and knew that was something I wanted to pursue. And I signed up for every international project from then on. You'll see a lot of people do not like that, right? So it'll stand you apart. I was a single guy without a family. I could travel. I could spend a week here, a week there, and it wasn't that big of a deal. And even now, before my wife and I got married, we set up our life to be able to still do that. So I think you got to want to do it. You'll see 80% of people do not want to do it. So take advantage of that opportunity.
Would you all say that maybe traveling internationally or taking those assignments has helped build your career or further your career? Are you looked at differently by your boss or by your company if you're willing to put yourself out there?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Big change compared to some of my peers that, like Jeremy said, maybe 80% of people don't want to travel. Maybe some of them think they do until they do it. But yeah, it's really sets you apart if you're willing to take on, roles that where you're giving up something to help the company.
Yeah, it's a good investment in your career early on, I think. You grow as a person when you move, and you experience a little bit of hardship and come out on the other side.
Just a quick, check, right? So we've got a trip coming up to Bangalore, India in April. We just purchased our tickets, so it's a week-long workshop. So with the connections with everything, it's a 22-hour trip from Charlotte to Bangalore. We're staying on site for 4 days, and then you got to turn around and fly back another 22 hours. So I'm going to spend 44 hours traveling for about 32 hours worth of meetings. And everyone at work said, you're crazy. Why would you do that? I was just talking to my family. Why would you do that? Well, I like going. I need to. It stands you apart. So that's the type of sacrifice we talk about. So most people aren't willing to do that.
No, that's a great point. Absolutely. So we've got one of our audience members is actually getting a degree in international studies, and they're actually majoring in Spanish. I know some of you obviously are engineers, but do you find that type of degree perhaps needed out there? And I know things are going on with the hiring freeze at the federal level, but I mean, just kind of your thoughts on that type of degree. So is there room, for people who are not engineers that perhaps want to be able to go work overseas or work in a foreign capacity? You have to be an engineer to go overseas?
Definitely not. So yeah, just some simple examples in our factory here in Toyota. We have groups in like project planning and human resources and all sorts of other areas of the company. And in every single area and aspect of our company, we're working with our Japanese counterparts, and there's always a need to understand each other, from an international relations perspective, and to work on projects from different aspects that aren't just engineering, for sure.
Our heaviest traveling person last year was the vice president of sourcing. So it's global sourcing. To put it in perspective, I think he had 623,000 Delta airline miles. So that's
wow.
It's a bunch
He
of time
flew
in
first
the air.
class. He upgraded pretty easily to first class.
He's the guy in Atlanta when you see the Delta Porsche pull up under the plane, and he goes and gets on that instead of taking the tarmac, and they drive him to his next plane. So sourcing is perfect, and so is HR.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I think you all have hit it on the head earlier, is it depends on the person, right? If you're going to put yourself out there and if you feel like you've got some skills and you want to contribute, then it doesn't always matter what your major is. It can be computer science, it can be engineering, it can be international studies, it could be history, right? It's really kind of how you, I guess, market yourself, I would imagine, to the company, and are you sincere and genuine? And like you said, Dan, are you seeking to get more into the company so you could be of greater value? Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's really
Wonderful.
anyone. It's open to anyone, and it's what you want to get out of your career, I think.
Yeah, but it doesn't hurt to have a degree in a relevant field also. Like if you're HR, if that's what you're going after, get a psychology degree or HR degree, you know, maybe minor in some sort of international studies or something. I don't know.
Sure. No, you're right. And that would be true for any job, right? You definitely want to do the research ahead of time. And that's why we're so thankful you all are sharing your knowledge and insights, because, there's so much maybe misinformation out there, but also, folks like you who've been there, done that, can give them some thoughts and advice for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of need out there for different kind of majors. Computer science, like I said, engineering, international studies. So I tell the students who are on, doesn't really matter so much what your major is, but obviously you want to do your homework, right? And if there is a need for someone in HR, like Jeremy was saying, then you might want to look at, oh, maybe I should do an internship with the international companies so I can get some, get some more knowledge and position myself nicely after graduation. I know we're closing it out here. What, I guess, advice would you give your younger self or anybody who is interested in working for an international company, whether it be here or abroad? We'll leave it totally open, and we'll start with you, Emil.
Sacrifice now and reap rewards later. Work hard when you're early in the career, because you build a good foundation if you do that.
Great. Jeremy, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I would say, always push yourself outside of your comfort zone, and just like that India trip example, right? Do the things other people aren't willing to do. I've seen it always pay dividends in the long run.
Nice. Hiroko, you have any thoughts, input?
When you're young, you can try something new, and you can do something different later, so don't think that any experience is in vain. So you jump on it, and everybody said, try something, you can do it, but try for it, and you have a heart to it, you try to stick to it, and then try to be a communicator. So you speak yourself, what you're interested in, how you can contribute to the company. So, always communication is the key for you to shine.
Wonderful. Dan.
Yeah, I think everyone touched on it, but be flexible, be willing to try new things, even if you don't know how it's going to turn out. Everything is a learning opportunity. And then make sure your management knows what you're looking for, and that you're interested in opportunities, and just try your best and work hard.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I'm going to throw it over to my two colleagues, Amy and Anika. If you've got questions or comments, please, and I'll let you all close it out. Just got to unmute yourself, Amy.
Sorry about that. I thought I had done that. Thank you all so much. This has been a wonderful experience for all of us. And obviously the students had fantastic questions. So thank you, students, but really appreciate your sharing your experiences. And we definitely will want to have more of these. We kind of, Anika came to us with an idea to do kind of a two-part. So we did this as a two-part series, with a part in the fall where we were focusing on the professors here in the department Anika, say it for me so I say it correctly, because I'm going to switch the words around. Called languages?
Oh, languages, cultures, and
translation. Okay, great. I knew the three, but I didn't know the order. So anyway, thank you for coming to us with this idea. I think it's been a really important discussion and really informative for our students. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for the panelists. I mean, it was very, it's not theoretic, what you all said, from your experience. And that's the big difference between, us, instructors, telling students how it is, as opposed to you coming here and sharing your valuable experiences. And thank you, students, for joining us. It's I think it was a very valuable insights that you guys heard from the panelists. And one last thing, Hiroko, I think, has an announcement in terms of internship.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't want to be unfair to anybody, but we are looking for the interns, especially who are interested in using the language skills. So I'm going to share the information to Anika Sensei. You can share with your students, but we are looking for someone intern or anytime if you want to just learn about how we can, give you opportunity. We want to really connect with the local students because Toyota is new. We are the same way. We're on-site supplier. We want to grow with local. So any internship opportunities we can work with you guys, please let Anika Sensei know so that you can get more information. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
And
Thank you. Yes, please,
you
Amy.
share that with me too. I'd be happy to get it out from the Career Center perspective.
Thank you.
And students, you can find our panelists on LinkedIn, but if you have a specific question you'd like to talk with them about, just reach out to Amy or myself, and we'd be happy to try to get you connected to them, barring any trouble they might have coming up. But thank you, everybody, so much. I'll go ahead and stop our recording and make it available for other students down the road who were not able to join us.